Subhanallah walhamdulillah.
24/7, 365.
Subhanallah walhamdulillah. La ilaha illallah wallahu akbar. You can say it once or 100 times or more. You feel a peace inside and it'll open every door. That's the power of remembering Allah. It's the best way to purify your heart. Know you will be loved by the merciful one. 'Cause that's the power of remembering Allah. Subhanallah walhamdulillah. La ilaha illallah wallahu akbar.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, welcome to School Matters, the platform where we can always care about our children, our families, and our future, and their future too. Well, I'm Sumaya Khan, your producer and presenter. Alhamdulillah, it's the first day of the July school holidays. Yes, a well-deserved winter break for our learners, educators, and parents. Today, we're diving into a topic that's close to every caregiver's heart: understanding your child and recognizing the red flags, not forgetting the parent and the educator. You know, in the busyness of life, we often focus on school performance and behavior, but sometimes we miss the silent signs. Children don't always tell us what and when they are going through something or when something is wrong. They show us through changes in their behavior, emotions, and social interactions. In today's program, we'll explore what it really means to understand your child, what red flags to look for, signs that your child may be struggling emotionally and socially, and most importantly, how you, a parent, guardian, educator, can respond with love, wisdom, and early support. Well, also share a few tips, from our experts' insight, inshallah, to help make these holidays a time of connection and awareness. Well, understanding your child and recognizing the red flags, why does it matter? Children may not always express their feelings directly. Instead, their behavior, social interactions, or even physical health may send a subtle, sometimes a little sign or a signal that something's amiss and something's not right. And this is so important that we as parents take some time out to realize and to understand that we need to just give it a little bit more attention to prevent something which we may not desire or you may not want to be the outcome, later on. So our topic this evening is, how do we understand our child? And understanding your child and recognizing the red flags. Well, I'm quite excited. We have two guests who, come from so diverse but yet so common backgrounds. Our guest in studio is Sister Raisa Sheikh, a speech and language pathologist. Yes, we have therapists, occupational therapists, but she's a speech and language pathologist. Well, Raisa is a dedicated speech and language pathologist who specializes in early intervention for children. She works closely with families, adopting a family-based approach that includes parent and teacher training to ensure therapy goals are carried over into everyday life. With a master's degree and extensive postgraduate training, Raisa combines patient-centered care with play-based techniques to support communication growth in the young children. She also places a strong emphasis on building literacy skills. This is something which our country, South Africa, especially in the government schools, which requires urgently, we actually rank quite low when it comes to literacy skills. Imagine if we cannot read, nothing else is possible and nothing else is comprehended. Well, Raisa works with children with autism, ADHD, speech and language delays, stuttering, and learning difficulties. So, Raisa will be touching on these topics. And our other guest is all the way from San Diego. I just love the way she says that. Yeah. Dunjia, I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it right. It sounds so French. Yeah, she's a claims manager at the insurance, specializing in claims law. She lived in San Diego for 24 years, volunteered at reading literacy programs for students. But she's also an advocate, especially when it comes to, human rights and, taking special care with learners. She's also been involved in literacy programs in America. So I'd like to welcome, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to School Matters.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having us. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Well, it's the first day, Monday of the school holidays. You are on holiday. When are you going back to America?
I'm going back on July the 12th, and we actually call it vacation.
Vacation. So you'll have those semesters.
It's right. We have semesters, but what it is that my son's finished school, so he's completed his second grade. And in America, the grades end in June, and then school starts back in August.
Wow.
So
what
our
a long
end of
break.
year is middle of the year in South Africa.
So you could probably travel half of the world and still be on holiday.
Yes.
We are a bit jealous, Raisa, because we got so structured, rigid holidays, but we make shukar. We appreciate the blessings in getting up late, the routine, enjoying the simple things in life. Your coffee is still hot when you're drinking it, not gone cold. The topic we have today is something which everyone thinks about, but we continue moving on, understanding our child and, realizing that there's red flags. Raisa, you've been involved in this. I won't even ask you for how long, but alhamdulillah, you have an immense vast knowledge on the subject and you deal hands-on, one-on-one with parents and learners concerning this. What does it really mean to listen to a child, not just with our ears, but with our full presence? I know I'm guilty with that. Sometimes my daughter at home, while I'm busy cooking or rushing or multitasking, she'll tell me something. I'll say, wow, that's so nice. She said, Mommy, I just said something really wrong or bad. And then I realized, okay, I was lying to her that I was listening again. So what does it really mean to listen to a child, not just with our ears, but with our full presence?
So that's a really great question, and it is something that parents and even teachers struggle with a lot, because in today's time there's so much going on. So we have our phones, which often has work on it, so we're paying attention to that. We have the TV going in the background, the radio. We have children demanding our attention, and sometimes when a child is speaking to us, we're also thinking about other things, things that stress us: financial stress, relationship stresses. So what should we be doing in these moments?
What's for supper?
Yeah, and I mean, this is part of life, but active listening, when done correctly, is a point of connection and safety for the child. So what we're looking at is a parent who is truly present and aware. So I advise my parents, say A'udhu and Bismillah, center yourself, connect to your heart, silence the noise around you. Focus on your child. Look at their facial features. Make eye contact. Smile. Get onto their level. If they're little kids, get onto their level. Soften your posture. Soften your neck and your face. Because before you even speak, your body is speaking for you. So connect to your heart and look at your child and see what's going on. How do they look? Truly look at them. And then listen to what they're saying. Not to fix the issue. Not to hover. Not to tell them, oh, you're wrong. Why did you say that? Just be present and show up for them, because your job as a parent is to, one, give them safety, to be a sounding board for them so that they can work through their own problems, so that they can work through their own emotions. And when you do that, and I'd like to bring our listeners to this quality. So Allah is As-Sami. He's all hearing. He's Rahman, he's compassionate. So what you're doing is you're actually emulating and transferring that frequency of Rahman to your child. And when you do that, then your child is able to grow in
Yeah.
a way that is healthy for them, you know?
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot more. So I'll give you an example. Once there was a child who I would see he's like 4 years old, minimally verbal. He would take a car and he would just throw it against the wall.
Yeah.
And he would just look at me and throw the car against the wall. And I mean, a parent or a teacher might say, "Oh, why are you throwing that? Stop it. You're going to get hurt. The car's going to break."
Hmm.
No, this is how a car goes. It's not wrong.
Yeah.
But what the child really needed was for me to just be present with him and give him the appropriate language. I'd be like, "Oh no, it crashed.
Hmm.
Look, it crashed. Oh, accident." And then he actually started modifying his behavior to include me in the play.
Yeah.
And then he started copying the word crash. And now
Hmm.
he started being more expressive. So, you know, presence and awareness is really important. And it
Hmm.
can really help a child on their emotional journey and on their journey to learn how to navigate the complex world
Yeah.
that they're in.
Do you know, there's something you touched on, and I think you also did that. Come down to their level. Sometimes we feel like, oh, no, no, no. I'm not saying we're high and mighty, but like, oh, it's too much of energy now just to like, take that couple seconds. And we don't realize that by not doing that, sometimes we can lower their self esteem.
Yeah, and you make a really good point. It's not so active listening doesn't only apply to children. Active listening applies to everybody. Active listening applies to when parents are speaking. Put away your phone. Are you at the dinner table? Where's your phone? Are you paying attention to what your child is saying? Are you paying attention to what your spouse or significant other is saying? So, as a claims manager, I've been doing my job for 25 years. I run teams that deal with hundreds and thousands of dollars, and all we do
Hmm.
is negotiations. And when you negotiate, there's a lot of social cues you take from that. Are you making eye contact, like you said? Are you your body posture, right? Is your arms crossed? Are you looking away? What exactly are you being present in that moment? But like Raisa was saying, um, active listening, being present, coming down to the child's level, talking to them doesn't only apply to children. It applies to, your significant other, your partners in the relationship at home, because your child is emulating your actions.
Exactly. And then we want to know why our children make perfect round rotis, just like their mothers.
Just
now,
like their mothers.
now you know it. Now you get it. They're imitating.
Exactly.
You know, Raisa, how can we begin to see our children's behavior, especially those that challenge us? And I think every parent right now is listening and saying, yes, that's my situation, as a form of communication rather than something to fix.
Wow. Okay, so this question applies to really little kids. So we have the terrible twos,
Terrible
5-year-olds.
threes.
And then we have the terrible
Terrible
teens.
eights, terrible teens. It keeps going.
Do you know, my daughter told me something a while back. Do you know, Mommy, you also get the terrible 30s and 40s and 50s. So I said, where did you hear that? She said, no, I was just reading something that parents and mummies and daddies also go through their terribles.
So I have a very good friend,
Yeah.
and her name is Rita, and she probably is not hearing this radio show because she's in San Diego. So I'm free to speak.
YouTube and Instagram.
So I'm free to speak. So I have a son, and I had him after 14 years of being married, and so she was like, "Thank goodness you have a boy, because I have 2 daughters, and I cannot tell you how frustrating it is to have those 2 girls." And they're 19 and 23. Doesn't end.
Wow. And generally, you'll have parents will say, like, like this stereotyping where girls are angels.
No.
So it's the tide is turning. Huh?
We know that. We know what we went
But
put our parents through.
I met your little one.
Yes, you met my little one.
And
Yes.
I was like so chuffed. I was telling Raisa, I just walked in, so cool, ended up just playing with the other kids with
Yes.
Legos and like just made himself at home.
Yes.
And we have Raisa's big little one sitting so perfectly. I mean, like I saw him, I'm going to say this on air. It's so nice. He just opened his lunch, he started eating. Generally, it's like, yeah, you're right. A lot depends on parenting.
Yes. And what they see the parents do, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what it is.
We mean it in good ways.
Yes.
Home is the first school that our
Yeah.
children attend.
That's a very good point.
And often a behavior is a language.
Yes.
We just don't understand it. It's like if I spoke to you in Chinese, you wouldn't know what I'm saying. But if you took the time to learn a few words, then you would understand my message, right? Behavior, pushing, throwing, screaming, tantrums. In teenage years, even things like isolating themselves in their room,
It's a
not
cry
wanting
for
to
help.
Exactly. It is a signal of something that is going on in their emotional state.
Yeah.
Children have really complex thoughts and experiences, but they don't know how to organize that, especially, and add language to it to communicate it. So we see the behavior first.
And YouTube plays such a vital role in the behavior.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
And we must also remember the sensory system. So a
Right.
child might be coming home from school really overwhelmed because of loud noises, light, touch. Their clothes may be itchy. They may be exhausted, thirsty. All of this relates to behaviors that we'll see. So what do we do when we see behaviors? I had this little girl who, such a sweetheart, but she would bite every time she got really overwhelmed. She would bite her friends. She would bite her parents. She would bite her teachers. Her friends would actually jump when she comes near them because she's going to bite them. And when she couldn't bite her friends, do you know what? She would bite her own hand. And it was so heartbreaking to see that. But then we looked at, okay, what is her sensory system saying? Why is she dysregulated? Why is she biting? Okay, she doesn't have the language to process that she's feeling frustrated, upset. Then we have to work on sort of what is acceptable behavior. So I can't bite my friends because that's not very
That's
nice.
not okay.
But I can maybe ask for some time alone. I can go and do some deep breathing. I can jump on the trampoline. I can use a stress ball. She had a sensory necklace that she used when she was really looking for that deep pressure input. So what I'm saying here is if you see a behavior, you got to put on your detective hat as a parent, as a teacher, and look at what's going on in the environment. What happened before this? What is this child trying to tell me? When you figure that out, you're better able to support your child. And often when a child is dysregulated, we try to talk them through those situations. That is the worst thing you could do.
Yeah.
Because
And that's what we all do.
it's terrible.
That's for all of us.
Do you know why it's terrible? Because they're not ready to receive that information because they're feeling so overwhelmed. So in those moments, you kind of just sit with them. Let them feel whatever they're feeling. Let them breathe. Let them come to a calm state. And then when they're calm, you speak about the event. Sometimes children might not even like the focus to be on them. So do you know what I do? I'll tell them a story about my childhood or something I experienced. Be like, oh, I had this friend and she would steal my lunch every day. And do you know what I did? And I'd give them different scenarios of what I could do. And I'd be like, so what do you think of that? What did I do? Does that sound good? And then without the focus being on them, they're able to see, okay, what is acceptable behavior and what should I do when I'm feeling this way? So behavior, it's once you get the hang of it, once you tune into your child and again, connect to your heart, be present, don't judge, don't try to fix, don't worry about what people are going to say. Because often in a shopping center, if you have a child that's like throwing a tantrum on the floor, parents are just trying to like quiet them.
Today I was with my mother-in-law, my little one, my nephews, and a whole lot of my daughters' friends from the flat where my mother-in-law stays. And as I was telling her, I took them to the beachfront. And we like sitting having ice creams and the kids are busy playing in the sand. And there's this child screaming, maybe like a 4-year-old, throwing a tantrum. Throwing the bike, screaming, and parents are like, don't know what to do. And they were like, what for other kids? And I looked at my mother-in-law, hey, lucky we never had that problem with our kids.
See, that's funny. That's funny. Just having that emotional intelligence. That's what it is.
But then it made me think, was I such a bad disciplinarian?
Right. You think about that. It's funny though, because, it took us 2 days to get here, right? Because we're traveling really long. And when I walk in with my son in an airplane, everybody just automatically thinks this is going to be a terrible flight, right? Because they're worried, right? They're worried, that there's a kid on the plane and it's going to be a terrible flight. And I think what parents need to understand, because we all go through this, right? It's what parents need to understand is they don't have the language capacity to explain what they're going through. True. Right. And we've all been there at one stage. Right. And as adults, we get frustrated. We get angry. We're not able to express ourselves very clearly. And I deal with this on a daily basis where somebody is trying to explain to me what they actually want me to do. But instead of really explaining to me what they actually want me to do, they're just yelling and
But
screaming.
why go so far? We as adults in
That's
companies,
right.
organizations, work environment, it happens all the
Exactly.
time.
It happens all the time. So how do we expect somebody, and let's be honest, right, Raisa, that they've only been able, like my 8-year-old son, he really has only been able to communicate to me for the last 4 years. He's still a baby at this. And here I am, 45 years old. I've been doing it for so long and I still haven't mastered it, right? And I think that teaching kids emotional intelligence, being able to say, rather than I'm mad, I'm angry, mommy, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated about what? What is it that's frustrating you? And I think that's really important.
Do you know, when you think about it, you know, we'll touch on this a bit later. Empathy doesn't exist.
100%.
And
You can say that again.
and we don't realize it. We're actually teaching our children that it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And then you have a child who's coming from a home where greet everyone you meet, be polite, stay in your lane. You know, it's blessings, it's sawab, it's you know,
Yes.
that's the way all our religious, the Quran, the scriptures have
Right.
taught us. And then they meet a child who's just gives a damn. We don't care who died, whether you fell and got hurt. How do our children deal with this?
Right. And so that's an excellent question coming from a mom, right? I always say, and what I tell my son is I hear what you're saying, and yes, it's frustrating. However, does it make you feel happy when you are following and doing the right thing?
Exactly.
So, funny story, we were at the Home and Garden Show. And so
anything
we were,
good before you continue?
Yeah, we
Anything
need to
good?
go.
Oh,
I got two tickets. Anything good there?
it's really fun. It's a
Okay.
lot of fun.
So it's worth it.
It's worth it. The food is amazing.
I heard that.
Okay.
Huh?
They
Enough
have
said.
they have enough. They had Moroccan lamb.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so we were exiting to enter into the Home and Garden Show,
Yeah.
and my son saw this guy playing a flute, and he was a musician on the street, and so he was like, I like the music, mommy. So we were gone for about 4 hours, and then we came back, and he goes, oh my God, mommy, he's still there. I feel really bad. I want to give him something. And I was like, oh my God, that's my son right there, because he felt empathy.
Yeah.
He recognized that, and he said, this guy's been here for so long and he's playing for so long. I want to give him some money because he's played music and the music was really lovely for me. And I was like, okay. And so when he gave him the money, he came back, he goes, I feel better, mommy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you
You
know-
know you're doing the right thing there, right? That was a good mom moment right there.
Children can only show us empathy when they have experienced
Amen.
empathy.
Right. Exactly.
And where does that come from?
It comes from the parents.
Mom and
you.
dad.
Exactly.
True.
From their immediate,
Mhm.
not from teachers at school, because often parents will blame teachers for things.
Right. That's right. But it starts at home.
It
Yeah.
starts at
True.
home.
True. Very true.
So you have to connect to your heart. And I keep coming back. So Allah's name of Ya Latif, subtleness,
Yeah.
kindness.
Mhm.
Show your child kindness. Like you said, I hear you. I see that you're struggling. You must be really frustrated. You're feeling empathy for your child.
Right.
That is so powerful for a developing brain, because now they know, oh, this is what it means to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel seen. And then when they see a need for it, they're able to replicate because
And
they've
that was it today.
been given the
could.
script.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So often parents worry, is this normal? What helps us trust the child's unique rhythm of growth, even when he doesn't follow the textbook path?
Okay, so we have two extremes here. So we have one set of parents, and this is just a personality type where they're like, oh, he'll outgrow it. We'll wait and see. It's fine. All the
It's a
boys in
dad's
our
family.
family, all the boys in our family are like this. Like all the
Boys
boys
will
in
be
your family are
boys.
ADHD.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, you know, that's just one type. And then we have the other type who's like anxious and worried and, oh no, my child is not doing okay. But I mean, they're getting 80s at school. No, they could be doing better.
Yeah.
Basically, what parents need to look out for is we need to respect that each child will grow at their own rate and rhythm, right? If we look at nature, if we look at flowers, each flower, each plant blooms in its own time and it's beautiful. However, we do look at the environment the child is in and we look at developmental norms. So is there something, so for example, if you have a 5-year-old who's only speaking in short sentences or hitting, pushing, kicking,
Yeah.
you're going to be worried. If you have a 7-year-old who's having difficulty learning to read, you're going to be worried. If you have a teenager who is not socializing well, doesn't have friends, comes home anxious, teary, you're going to be worried. So at each stage in your child's life, you have to look at what is expected at this stage in terms of their academic development, their socio-emotional development, and their interaction with people. And as a parent, you'll know. But if you don't know, go into Google, check a developmental list for your child's age.
The milestones.
Speak to a professional, speak to a speech language pathologist, a teacher, an OT, because they are with children all the time. You can even, and it's not nice to compare, but you can even look at your children within your family who are the same age or within their peer group and then see, oh, okay, what is my child doing? And if there's anything that worries you, the best thing to do is to speak to a professional. Do you know why? One scenario is that there's nothing to worry about and then you're okay, you've checked it out. And the other scenario is there is something to worry about. And now you're giving your child the best opportunity to fill in those gaps and to strengthen areas that they might be finding difficult.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's lots of red flags that we can speak about.
So I taught English for English language, secondary language, English as a secondary language. And I taught for 5 years. It was a volunteer thing for San Diego Reading Literacy Club. And I probably went through about 200 people over the course of 5 years. And one of the things that always stood out when it came to these children that were like 6 to 9 years old. And you have to remember they're coming from 180 different types of countries, right? So different types of languages, it's languages of the world. The biggest thing that helped them is parents actually reading to them. And it's funny when you really put this into perspective, right? If most people have Netflix at home, an average Netflix show is 30 minutes. And we devour it when we're watching it on TV. But if you spend that same 30 minutes reading to your child, that 30 minutes every day means that your child has a 90% success rate in passing their exams. And if people put that into perspective, you think about spending that 30 minutes, whether it's reading a cereal box, driving and looking at signs and you're reading it every second counts, and you're putting your child, you're setting your child up for this type of success is incredible. And as adults, if we continue that reading 30 minutes, we expand our word knowledge to 1.8 million words in a year.
Wow.
That's insane, right? And a child is 290,000 words. But in a developing brain, and Raisa would tell you as a speech language pathologist, that sponges. And not only are we teaching them how to read, we're helping them with connect, empathy, because when you're reading, you can say like whatever books, and I know my cousin sitting here behind me loves Harry Potter, right? And when you're reading something to your child, you're like, how do you feel about that, right? And that's the connection part, and that's where they can understand what other people are feeling and experiencing through reading. And so that was one of the biggest things. And it's really hard as a parent myself, right? As a working parent. And I'm also going for my second master's, right? In negotiations. So I'm studying as well. It's really hard to spend that time. And yes, my son is an avid reader. He reads really well for an 8-year-old, but I still have to be there and I still have to be connected. And as a volunteer doing that for 5 years, I realized that a lot of parents don't spend that time.
Exactly. That's so true. That is absolutely true. Yeah. Big feelings can overwhelm both children and adults, just like what we guys just touched on. What are some gentle ways to help a child find language or comfort when emotions feel too much? I think that's also refers to adults.
Yes.
So the first thing I would say, and we touched on this earlier, is that parents need to find a state of balance and calm before we help our children through their emotional
overwhelm. So should we open that 2-liter tub of ice cream?
That's right. Seriously though, if that makes you comfortable, do it.
So I'll give you a practical example. So sometimes I would come home from work and I'd be really stressed out. I have a headache or something would happen on the road, road rage. I talk it through with my son. So I'll say to him, oh, mom's really, I have a headache and I'm feeling so tired. My work day was really hard.
Mm.
Oh, and this person driving really slowly in front of me makes me feel really frustrated because I just want to get home and get comfy.
Mm.
Do you know what I've done? I've talked through emotions that I'm feeling so that when my child is feeling an emotion, he knows how to articulate it,
Yeah.
to process it, and he knows what to do with that. So when children are overwhelmed, as we discussed, it's never the time to teach in that moment.
100%.
You co-regulate. So you
That's right.
breathe, you smile, you give them a hug, you take them for a walk,
Yeah.
kick off their shoes, go and stand in
We
the
want to
garden.
do that. We do that.
You know,
Mhm.
ground.
Yeah.
Just show them safety, presence, love, connection.
Mm.
And then after that, you speak about, oh, when I feel angry, what do I do? When I feel sad, what do I do? If someone's passed on in your family and they miss that person, grandparent has passed on, oh, when I miss Nana, what do I do? You
Mm.
know? So overwhelm can present in many ways. It could be sensory dysregulation, it could be emotional outbursts, but there's two parts of that. So the one is connection, and the second part is, and I think a lot of our listeners can relate to this, is that as parents, our first job is to connect our children with Allah. It is to
Yeah.
connect them to the purpose of their creation.
That's
And
so
how are we
important.
going to do that?
Mm.
How are we going to do that? So we look at the names of Allah, we look at Quranic verses. There might be
Mm.
a dua that brings you peace. So you share that with your child. When I'm feeling really stressed, I read this. It could
Yeah.
be a simple thing like, I know my little one loves to read. Okay, I'll tell you a funny story. So do you
He's
remember?
sitting here, he's smiling.
Oh, this is your little one?
Not very little.
It's a big one.
I know. I do confuse people when I say little, but it's really little to me. So when he was actually little, did you remember the beach, the Golden Mile had
Yes.
those carrier cars that you'd sit
Oh,
in
yeah,
and you
yeah,
go, you know, over and you
Mm.
look, and it was beautiful. So one day I took him in this. Little boy was terrified of heights. So very excited to go on this thing. So he gets on and we sit, and I mean the bar that goes doesn't make you feel very safe. But anyway, so the ride starts and he's going, and then he got really scared. Do you know what he started? He started reading Fatiha. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. The whole way he was reading Fatiha. And I had a good laugh. But
Yeah.
do you know what? That brought him comfort and peace in a time of real anxiety
Mm.
and fright. You know, so teaching children these things, ways to self-regulate in moments of emotional overwhelm, is really
Sure.
important. And that is your job as a parent.
Yeah.
Before anything else, give your child safety, give them connection, give them a space to exist as they are without trying to fix them, and then connect them to Allah in these simple ways.
Almighty. Yeah,
you
that's so
know?
important, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny though, when you talk about self-regulate. What do we do when we're upset about something? I will go tell my mom. First, I'll go tell my husband.
Yeah.
Then I'll call my mom.
You never get justice with
Right,
your husband.
right, never. Then I call my dad. Then I'll talk to my sister, and I'm just venting.
Yeah.
I'm going and I'm going, and then eventually I'm done.
Mm.
That's how we
You
self
process.
right.
Yeah.
That's how we self-regulate, right? And that's exactly it. That's how kids do it too.
Mhm.
So when they get frustrated and they want to yell and they want to shout, they're self-regulating.
Exactly.
Right? It's really funny how
and we
do
need to
that.
teach them how to work with emotions. That's so
Yeah.
important. In a fast-paced world, what does it look like to create a home that nourishes a child's soul, not just manages their behavior? I think all of us are on the last bit. How do we manage their behavior? That's about it. We worry about school, what the school is going to say, behavior, what the aunt, the grandparents, the neighbor,
What will
behavior,
people
behavior.
say?
What will people
What will people
constantly
say?
say? Yeah.
But you know what? That's indoctrinated in us.
Yeah.
I don't know whether as Indians.
Culture.
I seriously believe that. As somebody that has lived longer in the States than I have lived here,
Yeah.
I can tell you it's our culture.
Yeah.
It's entrenched in our beliefs that your auntie and your uncle are going to be very, very
Pendra
embarrassed.
is nodding in the back.
That's
Yeah,
right.
my cousin.
My cousin knows it
Yeah,
because
I'm going to call you back on air. He's the gentleman who did the one with speech and drama. He's going to come back. He's going
And
to act out different scenes. for
that's
us.
right. And my cousin will tell you this all along. Like, it's funny. What will your mama think?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's funny, right? But in the US, it's all about what I am thinking.
Yeah.
It's about me and it's about my family. It's not about anything that what society thinks about you and how society feels. And to go back to that, we live a very fast-paced life, right? As parents, Sumaya,
Yeah.
you, Raisa, my cousin, we are constantly on the move, and I feel like the more digitalized we get, the busier we become.
Do you know, I was chatting to somebody, I think for our listeners to know, then maybe Raisa might know, one of the ex guys, the managers, he's probably listening, I don't even know, Hafiz Yunus Farooq today. And you know, with all that he does, everyone knows what he did and what he does. You know, he said stuff that made me think, you want to go in your solitude. Sometimes you feel like just, you know, he mentioned something that he'd rather just sit and share bunny chow with
Yes.
someone who's even a beggar or someone who has less and it's contentment. You feel so happy. Because
Yes.
when you're sitting with someone who is only with you because of your status, position, who you are, where you're going, and what
Yes.
you're going to be, you don't even know their true intentions. And are they real?
Yes.
Are you real? Or do you need to watch
Yes.
where you're going with that person? Are they taking you down or are they taking you up? So, you know, as you get older, and I don't know why we only realize this after a certain time in our lives, we're looking for loyalty. If you find
100%.
loyalty today, that's like wow, that's like gold. And when we retiring or when we on our way out or when we've been to so many obstacles and challenges in life, the simple things like, you know, should I go on this luxury cruise or holiday around the world, or should I just book myself somewhere in Marisburg on this lovely farm, wake up with the cows mooing and the rooster, you know, chirping and crowing and all of this, and just be relaxed.
We start going back to the most simpler things in life,
Yeah.
right? If you notice, simplicity is in,
Hmm.
right? Excess is out.
But the word for simplicity now to make it more lovely, we say rustic.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. So everything has a terminology.
Everything
Huh?
changes, right?
Yeah.
So to go back to your question when you said, you know, how do you make a comforting home? So the things that we practice, right? No social media.
Can we survive?
Yeah.
Honestly, can we survive?
I think we can. So what we do in my house, and I can only speak for myself, is that, you know, Google,
Yeah.
Apple, I'm not advertising for any,
Yeah.
but you know, any type of smartphone these days, you can switch off the Wi-Fi in the home.
Well, load shedding in South Africa.
Oh, that's right. I forget. You have load shedding. But there we go. Automatic Wi-Fi switch.
Our government takes care of us.
That's right.
Do you know how many people say it was blessing in disguise? Because families got to talk. We got to
That's
talk.
right. Families got to talk. The funniest thing happened. It was like about 7 years ago. There was an electrical failure, all of San Diego. For the first time, and I kid you not, for the first time, I met my neighbors down the street.
See,
they walked out the house.
So even COVID had blessing in disguise.
That's right.
You know, when you think about, you know, sometimes what they say, the law of the nature, or the Almighty, realize that we actually don't know. We're harming ourselves long term.
Long term.
Sumaya, I want to touch on the question you just asked. So I want to give Shem, I'm hard on parents, you know, so I want to give them some reprieve.
Wow.
That's right.
At school.
We want to leave them with a gift, right? So I will tell the parents who are listening to this, you don't have to have all of the answers.
Yes.
You don't have to fix every problem. You don't have to know what your child's life is going to be like in 10 or 20 years. You just need to be present with your child, to love them unconditionally, to truly give them your attention, your soft eyes, that heart connection. And I'll leave you with this name of Allah. So we focus on Ar-Rahman, right? Ar-Rahman is the one who acts with mercy, the beneficent. Now, when we experience, you were speaking about kindness, love, gentleness, softness. We are in connection with Ar-Rahman. So if parents just take that, we have 3 weeks of holiday, I'm giving you homework, not the kids, the parents. Focus on Ar-Rahman in all of your interaction with your children. Create that frequency in your home and see what comes out of it. Have no expectations. Just be with Allah in Rahman and Rahim.
Exactly.
Aren't we here for that? As
Sure.
parents, aren't we here to just share love with our children?
Exactly. Makes one think.
Yeah.
Every child grows in their own time, but sometimes there are signs that a child may need extra support. What are some gentle ways, you know, parents can tune into these red flags, and how do they know when it's time to seek professional guidance? Because sometimes we are in denial.
So, you know, as a parent, I think the denial comes from a fear of judgment
Absolutely.
and a fear of not having a perfect child and what will so and so
What would
think.
so and so think? That's right. What would
We
society
all are
think?
guilty of this.
I think everybody,
Yeah.
every parent, yes.
So let's leave that behind,
Mm.
right? Let go of that baggage, let go of judgment, because um, your children are a trust to you. Your children are an amana to you.
Mm.
So Allah has chosen you. God has chosen you to be the parent of this child and has placed this child with you. So do your best in that situation. So what does that look like for a very little kid who is not speaking, or a child who seems to be always anxious, emotionally overwhelmed? Maybe when they speak, they're not well understood by unfamiliar strangers. Maybe this child seems to be losing focus in class, has trouble sleeping. You could have a child who's having difficulty learning to read, write, spell. You could have a child who seems to enjoy being alone more than they enjoy being with
Yeah.
friends. You could have a child who has difficulty eating, picky eating, fussy eating. There's lots of signs that we could look out for. You as a parent will know. And if you don't know, that's okay. Just be present with your child
Right.
and you'll see. Allah will show you and guide you.
Mm.
Your mom eyes, your dad eyes will open and you'll be like, oh, I don't think this is right. And then someone else will say, oh, no, it's fine. He'll outgrow it. But trust your gut instinct. Go to a professional and seek help, because then you're giving your child the best opportunity to be the best that they could be.
And sometimes we feel it's embarrassing. We don't want to know
Should
there's
never.
something wrong. But as you said, we should never
No,
seek
we
help.
should never feel embarrassed. And I think as moms, right, we're all moms here. I think we don't trust our gut instinct sometimes. I think we say, well, I'm going to listen to what this person says because they've had experience in it, but we don't trust our gut instinct. And I think that's very important that what you brought up, Rice, is to trust your gut instinct. And I'll tell you what, I multiple times went with my gut instinct rather than what somebody else was saying. And I figured out my child had an ear infection. Or I figured out my child had a stomach bug.
Love it.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just, we as parents have to trust our intuition, trust the fact that we know our kids best,
Absolutely.
right? And then we take it from there. And it never hurts to see a speech language therapist. It never hurts to see a psychologist, because at the end of the day, what we are teaching our kids is to live without us, not with us. They have to be functioning members of society. And if they're not functioning members of society, they're going to have a very, very difficult life.
Exactly. Sometimes as parents, we want to do everything. No, I'm making this for you. No, I'll pack this for you. No, I'll sort this out. We don't realize we actually mollycoddle them, that we're actually killing them
We're
with
setting
love.
them up for failure.
I always mention this on my shows when needs be. About what was it, 6 years ago or 7 years ago, a lot of South African students were going to China to do medicine, nursing. And that was like a shock, or like a slap on their face, because like here in South Africa, they have the helpers, they got the drivers, they got someone who picks up after them, and they had to do everything for themselves. That where some of these children actually broke down because they never knew what it was to even go
Right.
and buy food. And now you're looking for like food which is halal or something what you eat,
Right.
to wash your own clothes, how you even use a washing powder.
detergent. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And we had parents and learners students who came on, and one of the moms said they never think about all of this. And so that's
Yes.
so important.
Yes, it's very,
Yeah.
very important.
Struggle is good
Yeah.
for your children, because when you're making their lunch for them and sorting out their clothes and packing their bags, what are you showing them? You're showing them that, number one, I don't trust you to do
some people
Yes,
tell
that's
some
very
people
true.
tell me that I can't live. I always tend to be personal. I don't know why on my show. Some people tell me you can't live the way you have grown up. You lived in like dinosaurs' age, so let you do this for your child. And I just feel like no. It's teaching them to be independent, like
Right.
putting your shoes by the door, taking out your bag, putting your message book, like simple things. Some colleagues, even family members, tell me it's child abuse. But I look at it like, oh, what's going to happen when I'm dead and gone?
That's right. That's why you teach them to live without you, not with
Not
you.
hardcore, but like learn to be responsible.
That's
Simple
right.
things, We can't keep on making excuse. I'm a teacher. Why that book wasn't in the bag or something?
Right.
Because they are so used to mom or dad or someone else doing things for them. So
Right.
we need to instill that.
Yeah, and you go to Japan and you'll be surprised. The kids
Yeah.
are taking the subway by themselves. They're 6 and 7 year olds. They're taking the subway by themselves.
Rounding up, what advice you have for your fellow South Africans?
Read. 20 minutes a day, read to your kids. that is one way that you can ensure your kids are successful in life.
Oh,
read to them.
Thank you so much. Spontaneously just capturing
Yes.
you onto radio. Old-fashioned media was when you met someone in the grocery store, at work, on the road. Hey, you know what? I do a radio show. You don't want to come back and talk about this topic. And you were like so up to it. Thank you so much. And all
Thank
the
you,
best
Sumaya. Thank
in
you so
your
much.
endeavors. And hopefully having, your cousin, and you mentioned every 2 years you're in back
Yes,
in the
and we are back every 2
You're going
years.
to be in studio, but we're also going to link up with you. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Okay.
And Raisa, your parting words to all our moms out there, and especially, I'll just say the parents out there.
Enjoy this time that you have. Get your kids outdoors, have fun with them, build memories, be present, show them love, and don't worry about what people are going to say. This is your child. You know best, and just enjoy the time.
Okay, Jazakallah so much. And I already adopted you to School Matters, so every now and then, expect to get a call from me. Well, yeah, I'd like to thank our tech Asi for making the show possible beautifully. Mashallah, music playing in the background. We're having messages coming and thoroughly enjoying this show. And looking forward to have you as my tech again. Well, I'd like to thank everyone who was listening in, and hopefully, with all the advice and the knowledge and the wisdom and little tips and stories, we're definitely going to be better parents and caregivers. My email address is sumayakhan.alansar@outlook.com. Behind every behavior is a feeling, and behind every feeling is a need. When we meet that need, rather than focus on the behavior, we begin to deal with the cause, not the symptoms. Assalamu alaikum.
लाखों सलाम लाखों सलाम
Radio Al-Ansar, 24/7, 365.
An informative